moment. I would say again, September was kind of a collection of pretty intense moments. So I guess that would just be my answer. It'd be September. Will the new admin adopt the new Moot name, number 823? I was actually thinking about that for a while. I really thought it'd be funny to, satisfy all of the Bane posters and have the new admin or admins plural become, the Moot, kind of like the Batman. Which is funny because when part of the reason that we, I'm sure again nobody will believe me now, but part of the reason that I'm the only named person more or less with the moderation team is because, way back when, say 8 or 9 years ago, when the names of moderators used to be known, they would just catch shit, for everything, and people would kind of, this didn't happen nearly as much back then as it does now, which is really unfortunate, but, people would kind of jump on and blame people for certain things. And I decided, I was like, well, look, everything, again, it's such a flat organization, everything bubbles up to me, so I can be the punching bag, I can be the Batman, like everybody can just be mad at me over things, and because again, ultimately all of that responsibility falls on me. It's my website, I was the administrator owner, and so if they have an axe to grind and bone to pick, then they can do it with me and not some poor old moderator who really has no ability to affect anything. And so I, kind of adopted this, okay, I'm the only administrator. Again, I'm the only named person, and you can all kind of, yell at me. And for the most part, I think that it's kind of working, and it's kind of insulated, I think, a lot of the volunteers from, again, that kind of hatred and whatnot, or, kind of axe grinding, and allowed them to kind of do their work kind of, more in peace and have me kind of deal with most of the flack. I would say, it hasn't worked in the sense that I, kind of became this almost like boogeyman again, like everything is my fault, which again, in some ways that's true. Although again, I think a lot of projection happens and a lot of things that really are not, are outside of my control kind of get, thrown at me. I can kind of function as the ultimate scapegoat, but, the really unfortunate thing is that, the few times that people actually, you see this now, you see this with /A and, with Redwood, right? But, and you saw this on /V in April, which was also, I think, actually a stressful month with, was it Sage or Free? I don't know, some guy who basically was a moderator like years ago, or I'm trying to think if he was a moderator. He was a janitor and then a moderator years and years ago, and hadn't been with the site for years. And was to be fair, really dumb to post his, his credential on his LinkedIn, and also another credential that he had, which was, I guess he had been a volunteer on like one of the EA forums, but people interpreted this as, oh God, 4chan is knowingly, but of course, again, clearly, Occam's razor here. Is it some idiot who happened to be a volunteer, and again, a community volunteer for some random EA game forum, and happened to be a 4chan moderator, at some point. Or is it some, devilish conspiracy to, appoint, shills as moderators? Like, well, again, everybody went with the latter. But that was, really disappointing in that it was an example where people, again, like he hadn't been with the team for years, and yet people attributed like all of the deletions and bans that they didn't agree with over the past few months to him, which again, like not possible. The guy hadn't helped out for at least, a year or two. And that's what you've seen. That's been a recurring theme where, again, with A, where, he was actually inactive for a number of months. And again, like people, the second they get a name, that empowers them to just blame everything they hate on that one person. And I would just tell you again, 99% of the time you were wrong. And again, there are dozens of moderators. Moderators have not been board specific in over 10 years. Janitors are board specific, but they can have multiple boards. And again, like you're wrong. You're just flat out wrong if you think that who is doing something. And it's funny. I see names tossed around all the time, people who haven't been with the team for months or years. And I saw people speculating on A about who the successors would be, and they would mention Shut, for example. Like Shut, is a good personal friend of mine. I've known him. He was one of the first people to help out with the site, but he hasn't been involved in ever. He did the panel with me last year for old time's sake, and I see him regularly because he's a friend, but he hasn't helped out in years and years and years. And people still, for whatever reason, think he's involved. And now we're probably start blaming him because they have another name to use. So, and again, maybe that's something that will change under, again, we tried to add a little bit more transparency with the with the /bans page. And again, everybody claims that we're censoring that. And it's like, sure, we don't, I can tell you, we don't show the post preview for posts that do advertising. We don't show illegal bans and stuff like that. But for the most part, I mean, that is not a hand-picked list. It is just, there are a few ban templates that can't show up there because, again, we don't want to expose people to illegal content on the bans page, and we don't, retain those things anyway. The post data, but that is actually like I mean, it's just, it's like every 30 minutes it runs and it just takes a sampling of recent bans. So we've tried to kind of make things more transparent, and again, with the feedback page, and if you haven't banned recently, I mean, we've made some changes there that it tells you the average appeal time, and also there's an ability for a moderator to contact you to kind of request more information about your ban. So now I digress, but anyway, that's gotten a lot better. But you have healthy ways to express feedback about moderation, and yet people, I think, again, often kind of jump to these the worst conclusion and start to kind of harass and harangue people for things that they really had nothing to do with. Again, more often than not, people are just absolutely wrong, and so that's kind of a result of this kind of, the team is anonymous, and so I think, again, for the most part, it's worked out for the best, because we don't have these kind of cults of personality or again these blame games that happen, except in the few cases when somebody's name kind of gets out there and some person becomes a crusader to blame everything on them, and people just again, without any sort of facts or validation, just pick it up and run with it and kind of parrot it. But so yeah, I mean, I considered back to the original question. I mean, I considered kind of retiring my nickname. I probably won't really use it that much anymore. I mean, I think I'm retiring from 4chan is kind of retiring from Moot too. But I won't be kind of yielding that or giving that to the next admin. They can choose a name for themselves. Why the fuck did you make S for S and LGBT? Seriously fucking why? Number 829. S for S was an April Fool's joke that somehow outlived itself. I mean, it was meant to be a joke about SRS, or Shit Reddit Says, which is a subreddit that, again, was the boogeyman of the moment for a while for people who had a kind of a bone to pick, and thought that these this outside force, these SRS people, were invading the site, and every shit post should be attributed to them. But so we were kind of poking fun at that. And as it turned out, a lot of people didn't really get the joke because, as it turns out, again, people who think that represent a very small but vocal minority on the site, and they kind of didn't know what to do with it, and they ended up just using it kind of as like a B 2.0, and it was actually excellent. I mean, if you look at it, it's actually a really fun board. LGBT was, again, kind of more of as a containment or kind of catch. I mean, not containment, but kind of a catch-all. I had considered at one point kind of changing it to be more just a general sexuality board, because I think singling that out, those topics out is also a little bit silly. And again, we've always tried to have very, very broad categories on 4chan, the broadest possible, without kind of overlapping too much with something we already have. And so I think, I mean, LGBT is, again, specific to kind of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, I guess, topics, but I think it kind of has functioned as a kind of more of a general sexuality border. Maybe R9K is kind of the other side of that coin. Number 832, number 1, is there any guarantee that the priorities of the new administrators will be in line with Mott's? If they receive a buyout offer and if he is, will they take it? Again, I don't know who the long-term successor will be. The transition team, I think, again, doesn't really want to rock the boat. I don't really know how sensitive will they be. Again, hard to say. Do wrestling threads belong in SP? I don't want to rock the boat here, but I mean, ASP was added. It was in fact added to kind of encompass those threads. We never explicitly said that they weren't allowed on SP. It seems that obviously there's a preference for people to continue to post them on SP because, I mean, that's where they've always been, and that's where the kind of community for that is, and it's people. Don't want to kind of move boards. I mean, it's actually an interesting kind of example of we have tried to kind of create boards that cater to like a kind of a niche or niche. I can't pronounce that word, but just a general challenge that we have, again, kind of accommodating all of the conversations that people want to have within reason. where I think, again, people become very kind of particular about their boards and their home boards. You know, everybody hates cross borders, which is, I think, bizarre, because we used to 10 years ago encourage people to use other boards, or again, use the board that's appropriate for the topic that you want to discuss. But you know, the way I've